IPMNation.com.
Live from the Outpost Studios in Columbus, Ohio, you're listening to All Natural Being with Brian Brawdy. Brought to you by IPMNation.com. Get ready for the gong heard round the world.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Now that's a gong.
All Natural Being. Warning, All Natural Being with Brian Brawdy is designed to shake your sense of self to the core.
It's full contact psychology with an empowering twist, a philosophical loofah for your soul.
For those of you not ready or comfortable releasing your inner superhuman, listener discretion is advised.
Here's your host,
Brian Brawdy.
Good morning, and welcome to the 314th episode. I know, right? It's wild for me as well. The 314th episode of All Natural Being. We are into hour 14 now, and I'm beginning to think my ears are going. I don't know. I keep turning the volume up on the headset. I think my ears are going. So, as you know, if you've been watching or listening, still can't figure out the internet feed. I'd like to think that it's something else. I don't know. Maybe it's just our internet. I don't know what it is. So, as always, if you're having a hard time either on Facebook or YouTube, please head over to IPMNation.com/ANB now, and you can pick up the full audio thread. Maybe the way to do it is just put Facebook or YouTube on your computer, turn the volume down, turn up IPMNation.com, and we'll go from there. So thank you for sticking with us through all of the different all the different machinations that are internet cutting in and out. So thank you so very much. Let me say hello quickly to Patricia, and thank you, Patricia. I have the True Fruit raspberries waiting for you. Dana Lee, thank you so very much for joining us at All Natural Being. We are now in the closing the closing 10 hours. What is wrong with me? We're in the closing 10 hours of our ramp up to the record, 81 hours to win. And clearly I've identified that there'll be some things that I need to do, right? So I think I've got I've got my my water, I've got my BioPro, I've got all the stuff that I need from Maju, I've got all that's nearby, but I need some other things that, I've got the fans from Pollen Tech, I've got everything else that I think that I'm going to need in that regard. There just might be some other little things. I've got a nice little chair. I've got uncomfortable shoes and all the rest of that. So I'm keeping very copious notes of the things that I think I can do to make the 81 hours feel like it's a little more in reach for me. Patricia says, Brian, you are from West Virginia, and I spent my summers in Chose, Bedford County, Pennsylvania. Oh, look at that. I didn't know that. I like that. Very nice. So yeah, what was I thinking? Yeah, it's not the amnesia, it's just me. So getting back to those things that I'm able to do to kind of make, that 81 to win, what's going to kind of make it doable. And I could see why you need a very judicious use of a bunch of different things in order to make an attempt like that work. And by all means, I'm starting to identify some of those right now. Let's go ahead and take a call. I guess it's morning by now. Good morning. Welcome to All Natural Being. Who is this?
Hey, Brian. It's Matt Connerton.
Matt, how are you, sir?
Well, I'm more interested in how you're doing.
I will tell you that with only 10 hours left to go, I'm thinking, What is wrong with me? right? But I don't want to throw that out there because the list is just long and wide and deep. But let me say hello quickly to Jenny. Also, David Ray Bowman, my good friend, and one of the radio professionals that I've modeled. He's a lot better than I am, but at least I looked up to him. I looked up to you as I was getting ready to do this. So I feel good. I don't have a headache. I feel strong.
Good.
So I think it's all good. I just hung up with my good friend Patricia, and that's always fun. And I've had I'll show you this, Matt. I said today that customer satisfaction is our number one goal. So what I wanted to do in this 24-hour episode, I don't know if you're watching the video, but what I wanted to do, I look best with those placards right here, don't I? What I wanted to do is make sure people listening could get some benefit. Right? So I went after doctors. I went after dental hygienists. I went after experts in water filtration and air filtration and philosophical filtration. And I just wanted to find the best that I could, the best that I was capable of reaching out to, so that if people would invest listening with me today, they could go away from it saying, I got some really good information from that show. I had Henry Noel on from Transitional Radio. I had Lee Rowley is on from Sales Copy Academy. I had Gordon on earlier from tryh2.com. And then I had someone from ProPure USA. I had Paul from Pollentech. I should say Steve from ProPure USA. I had Kurt from H2 Bev. So I wanted to bring Amanda Bobbitt on. I wanted to bring some people. Jose was on. Ann was on. To bring some people so that Mike Warren and his dad, Dr. Warren, were on for BioPro Plus. I wanted it to be where people felt like there was a benefit other than just me being nuts, right? I wanted people to think there was a benefit to hanging out with me. And most certainly you fall into that category of providing some ideas, it's obvious that radio is a passion of yours. It's obvious that IPM Nation was once a vision of yours, and you've done everything you could to build it from scratch. And I think maybe some of our viewers aren't into ever having a radio show. Maybe I'm the only one nuts enough to be listening to things. Oh, yeah, that would be a great idea. But what you can speak volumes about is having a vision, having a passion, and just being damned if you'll let it fail, right? When I think about you, Matt, I oftentimes think, I don't know if Matt knows what he's going to do to be successful, but I know he's not going to fail. I have no clue how you're going to get to be a success, but I know that about you. You will not give up until you are. So again, in thinking, customer satisfaction, our number one goal, another placard. I think I look best. I think my color is a little better when I'm standing behind this white cardboard sign. You know what I mean? So that's what I thought maybe we could hang and talk about, if you would, about the vision, how you started this. It's been 14 hours now since I was on the phone with Jenny and talked about her. Her and I spoke on the phone one time, and she's like, well, I'm going to introduce you to Matt. Maybe we can make this work. Long before that call, IPM was a vision of yours. You had a passion for it. So if you don't mind, I'd like to maybe walk down memory lane or have you walk down memory lane for the people listening. And maybe the people aren't on the thread right now, right? Tomorrow's a holiday, so people are out busy celebrating at their late night barbecues. Could you give us an idea for people that are going to be listening on Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, all the rest of it, Burblary? What was it like in the very beginning when you said, you know what? I think I'll start a radio station. How did you get to that point, and what did you do?
Yeah, well, it originally, so IPM Nation started as a show because at the time, so I had been hired to host a show on a long defunct station called RageRockRadio.com and an internet station. And I'd been invited to host a show called The Metal Classroom, which again is long gone. But I also decided to start my own internet radio show at that time, I and another gentleman named Matt Marcil, who had a recording studio at the time that we could record the show. It wasn't live or anything. I mean, and it was before the word, it was really a podcast, but it was before the word podcast became commonly used.
Okay.
But that's really what we were doing. So I decided to start a show called IPM Nation. And the reason I wanted to call it that is, so the company was originally called Impact Player Music. That's where the IPM originally came from.
Oh, really?
Now it stands, now the IPM stands for Independent, Provocative, Mobile, but it originally stood for Impact Player Music. And at the time, the main thrust of the company was doing promotions for musicians, for independent and unsigned artists who needed help getting on the radio primarily, and some other services as well. So my idea for the show was, and doing this with my friend Matt, he has a recording studio. He has clients who record at his studio. I have clients for whom I do promotional work for.
Okay.
Let's create a show where we play music of our clients, and we don't necessarily tell the listeners outright, here's why we're playing this music, but we feature music that, that we've either worked on or clients that we've worked with, etc. And in the course of doing that show, we would play music, but we also would find ourselves doing a lot of funny bits and goofing off and a lot of silliness. But it started as a show. And then eventually, other people became interested in having shows on the website. So in a relatively short period of time, IPM Nation became not just the show, but a station. And again, it was before the word podcast was commonly used. So if we were to start it the exact same way today, we would probably use the term podcast network, because it ended up, it was a website with a bunch of different podcasts on it.
Sure.
And then it was that for a long time. And then, I started doing live shows on there, with, some different services. And then eventually, actually it was after, Jenny had come into the picture, and she's helped me quite a bit. As you know, she's the one who recruited you. Eventually, we started launching 24/7 live radio channels within the site. So not only did we have podcasts, but we had live programming. And now we've got multiple live channels, and you have your own live channel. And that's kind of the short Cliff Notes version.
Now, was it more that you were into just being a performer? So it wasn't really that you ever wanted to be a radio mogul. You just liked the concept of performing, and then it kind of built into that. But I also know you have I guess you call it terrestrial radio. You also have, you have a real radio gig or another radio gig. So was it more just as a performer? Because I listen to you and I just think you're funny. I think, in terms of some of the taglines, you're more than welcome. Some of the things that you say, I just think you're funny. Was it the sense of wanting to perform, or was it really radio? You wanted to be on air?
I had always wanted to be on air, but when I first really, in terms of in terms of working in radio or in jobs connected to radio, I really, it was around, it would have been in the year 2000, which was, 18 years ago.
Okay.
I initially started working with clients promoting their music to radio stations, because I also, I do college radio promotion. Haven't done as much of it lately because I've been so busy with other aspects of the business. But with college radio promotion, clients pay us to send their music out to college radio stations across the country and try to get them airplay. And so I was on that side of radio for a very long time, and I'd always wanted to be an on-air personality, but that had always kind of been in the back of my mind.
Okay.
And then I just kind of fell into it. my first radio gig hosting that show, The Metal Classroom, the way I got that was I was a guest. It was because I had been a performer. At that time, I was in a band. I was in a metal band called First Shove, and I had been invited to be a guest on that show. And the owner of the station liked how I did on the show so much and liked the way I talked and thought I was funny and whatnot. He invited me to be an alternate host because the host who was doing it at the time couldn't do it every week. It was a weekly show. So it became a thing where I was going to host it every other week. And then it became, they made me the official host. And something similar happened with another show. I have a show on FM radio called Local Outbreak, which airs here in New Hampshire, which features strictly New Hampshire-based musicians and artists. And I was a guest on that show. And then within, I think, a month, I was hosting the show. So there's a weird pattern here. So don't ever let me guest host your show because I'll end up being the host.
Good.
But
hey, how'd you like to be the host for the next 9 hours and 43 minutes? Take it. Take the wheel. I'll climb in the passenger seat. Just nod off.
Right.
So then, what can you offer to folks that, because it's clearly a passion for you to perform?
Yeah.
What can you offer to folks about following, right? Putting their heart's highest priority top of the list. What can you say to them about going after it? And clearly you're just a usurper, right? So you get your foot in the door and you're like,
That's right.
you're like a virus. It just doesn't leave. But other than that, you must have, right? You must have some sense of it being a passion for you. So what can you offer to other people that go, well, yeah, I might not be radio, it may not be performing in this regard, but it's still being an entrepreneur or going after my dream or my desire or putting my heart's highest priority top of the list. What would you say to people that are listening that go, that want, say, I'd like to have the courage, I'd like to have the vision, I'd like to have the determination or the grit that Matt has so that one day I can pull this off?
Yeah, I think part of it is you have to be, see, one of the ways that you and I think, kind of think alike, Brian, is, you talk a lot about not necessarily having goals. And my approach to things has always been, I try to find things that I like to do. And then I operate, instead of setting specific goals and then specific benchmarks that I have to meet, on a certain timetable or whatnot, my approach has always been I find things I like to do that I'm passionate about.
Okay.
And then I just try to work as hard as I possibly can at those things, operating under the assumption that if I do that, and if I apply myself, eventually I'm going to get somewhere good.
That's fair enough. I like that.
Yeah, not worrying about necessarily where that is or what level of good or, what level of success I achieve. But I assume if I work hard and I learn and I'm, and I just push, that I'll get somewhere.
Well, my grandfather used to say, luck won't find you sitting on the couch. So you get to the point where you just keep pushing and pushing and pushing. And then one day, that luck or those circumstances or whatever you want to call it, those things materialize to such a way where you look back and you probably go, I can't even imagine that's the way it fell together, right? I think when you and I first talked, I can't even imagine what you must have thought, because I had met Jenny on a call, and she said, well, you should talk to Matt and this whole thing about IPM Nation. And I remember being nervous, and we were getting ready to talk and this and that. And a part of me would normally go, well, you should be on your best behavior. Then the other part of me goes, you don't have a best behavior. Just what are you doing? And I can only imagine when I got on the call with you and you were like, all right, what do you want? And I said, I want the worst time slot you have.
Yes.
Well, I want the absolute worst time slot. And you must have been going, Jenny, why do you give my personal number out? Well, did we call him or did he call us? Is there any chance he could find us? And the reason that I wanted that is that you should know, Matt, my entire life, I have always said, when people ask me, what will it take to be a success? And I go, I'll be a success when I never have to set an alarm clock.
Right.
I don't care what entrepreneurs, Shark Tank, all the posers. Who cares? Oh well, in order to be a success, you need to get up at 3:30 every morning. You need to do this. You need to do that. My definition of success is I'll get up when I'm damn well good and ready. Right. So
That's
then
a good barometer.
I thought so.
Yeah,
Then I had the call with you, and I was like, I want the worst time slot you have. And I'm keeping my fingers crossed, like, say 8 o'clock at night, say 8 o'clock at night, say 8 o'clock at night. And you didn't say 8 o'clock at night. You said 7 o'clock in the morning, which, if you remember, 7 o'clock in the morning, I lived in Chicago, that was 6 o'clock. So now I'm like, all right, forget about not being able to set the alarm. I've got to start setting the alarm to be ready. And at that time, I was driving to a studio in downtown Aurora, so I had to get up, get in the car. I always stopped at Walmart, right, because I wanted a monster for the road. Right, get over to the 24-hour Walmart, stop in there, get down, get everything set up, plug in this, plug in that. And I was still learning. So for me, I wanted the worst time slot because I didn't know how. I mean, I really didn't know how. You remember, Matt? I remember when I first asked you to explain Gain to me, I thought you were talking about the laundry detergent.
Sure.
Well, I had no clue. Well, Brian, do this. I'm sorry. How many times have I said to you, Matt, English, baby, English, right? Speak to me, English. So when you said 7 a.m. Eastern, I was like, you have got to be kidding me. But I knew that if I picked the worst, let's put it this way, Matt, if I got you to agree to give me the best time slot, when I got to be number one in that time slot, people would go, well, of course you got to be number one, Needle Knits. You were given the best time slot in the whole station. So I inverted that to go, all right, when I get to be number one, people will have to say, you did it from the dugout. You did it from the worst possible. I don't know much about horse racing or car racing for that matter, but like, what are you if you have the worst position? You're not the pole position. Is there a name, Matt, in car racing for the last car on the track?
I probably know exactly as much about auto racing as you do.
Oh, okay, groovy. So just dead last car on the track. How about horse racing?
Yeah.
Ever play the ponies?
I can't say that I have.
So, me neither, right? Great job, Brian, with clearing a clear, succinct picture. Hopefully Lee's not listening. Right. Oh, great job, Brian. That allegory, that metaphor was just spot on. So the last horse. Oh, so it'd be the outside horse, I guess, right? If you're the inside horse, you don't have to run all that extra to get over. So I knew that.
Sense, yeah.
Thank you very much. Yeah, who knows? I knew that I was going to be number one. Didn't know how. I just knew I wasn't going to stop.
Yeah.
And I had to do it from the worst position at your station, because if not, everyone would have thought I cherry-picked.
Yeah.
Right? Everyone would have thought, oh, well, no, it's just you and you're friends with Matt, and he gave you a sweet deal. So at that point I knew, and then I remember hanging up with you going, what the hell did I just do? I know nothing. I know nothing about this. So
yeah, you got to number one pretty quick, though.
I don't remember, but I think so. Yeah. And it was, and I remember, and then this is all before the brain tumor, as you remember, Matt. This is all before me even knowing any of this. I just thought I was naturally nuts, and then you start justifying yourself. Oh, everyone's face tingles. Everyone's tongue goes numb. Everyone, if you remember, a full year before they found the tumor, I went to the hospital thinking I was having a heart attack because the entire left side of my body was numb. People go, oh, left side of your body's numb. You're having a heart attack. So I go to the emergency room, and they put me on a treadmill for a stress test. The doctor goes, you just outran the treadmill. There's nothing wrong with you.
Yeah.
This is before the tumor. And then afterwards, I remember, to be honest with you, there was a time where I wasn't number one. And then I was like, yeah, I'm going to take care of that here very shortly. And I swore I would never be like that, but I was just like, oh yeah, I'm going to figure out how to do this. Yeah. And that was the beginning of me at IPM Nation.
Yeah. Yeah.
And kind of like a side note, Matt, was that my first ever time, since we're being honest, I might as well, I don't know if I've ever told this story before, but my first ever time on television outside of being a cop in New York. So the first time I was ever on TV, I worked at a Air One Mountain Outfitters in Chicago selling, I don't know, sport coats, Gore-Tex jackets and climbing boots and sleeping bags and tents and everything else. And one day the phone rang and the voice on the phone says, it's going to be 20 below zero. We'd like to come to your place and you can tell us how to dress for those temperatures. And thinking it was a total joke, thinking it was a girlfriend or anybody, right? Thinking it was just a joke. I said, well, I have this little thing called Face the Winter. And how about I come to your place? I'll build an igloo. I'll sleep outside overnight in that igloo, and I'll feed your staff tomorrow morning, and I'll do it all with the contents from a single backpack. And the voice on the phone, Matt, goes, get out of here. You'll do that? And I go, yeah, I'll do that. And she goes, I'll call you right back. And I go, no. Because I still thought this was a joke, right? I go, yeah. How about I call you back? And she kind of chuckles and she goes, okay, why don't you call me back? And she gives me this number. So I wait like 5 minutes and I dial the number back. And I said, do you have a Robin bread bomb? But please hold for Miss Baumgarten. We're like, well, that's pretty impressive in terms of continuing the joke. She's even got her boyfriend answering the phone like he's somebody else. And she picks up the phone. She goes, this is Robin. And I go, Robin, it's Brian. We just spoke. And she goes, oh, so you did a little bit of a background on me, did you? It turned out that was Robin Baumgarten from WGN in Chicago.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And so after a few more minutes, I hung up. And like that call with you that day, when I like, now I did it. I got to go figure out radio. I hung up with her and went, how the hell do I build an igloo? And I remember, I remember getting a book on winter camping and going, now you did it, Needle Knits. How are you going to build an igloo? But I learned, I got there that night, I started, and it was just a horrific snowstorm. And the next morning I ended up with 5 or 6 or 7 segments on camera. And about a third of the way through, someone came out and said, how long have you been in television? And I said, I don't know, about an hour and a half. And they said, where'd you go to school for journalism? I go, I never went to school for journalism. And I'll never forget it. The guy said, did you ever think about a career in TV? I'm like, well, I am now. And that was the start, Matt. Somewhat 5,000 television appearances later on television stations and national organizations. But it came from that same type of insanity where I was like, yeah, I want a radio show. I want the worst time slot. Yes, I'll come to your place and build an igloo. And then there's the sound of the phone hitting the receiver going, what the hell did I just commit to? But it's the only way, it's the only way I know how to be. Right. And someone said to me the other day, Matt, they're like, what's different about you is that some people will thrive when their back's up against the wall. Mm-hmm. You seem to thrive after you've put your own back up against the wall of your own making. It's just never enough for you. Like Ashley said to me the other day, she goes, yeah, and I'm pretty sure I told you, Matt, this 1049theriver.com. Mm-hmm. Did I tell you about sending the email?
No.
I didn't tell you about this.
I remember you, I think it was during an earlier part of the marathon you talking about.
Oh, did yeah. And they stiffed me. I volunteered to shovel. Right. Yeah, they stiffed me.
Now,
yeah. All I said was, look, teach me a board. Teach me this. Teach me that. Teach me. And they totally stiffed me.
Yeah.
So Ashley said, it's just like you. Someone doesn't return your call or your email or your voicemail or whatever. So you decide, I'll fix their wagon. You'll go after the world record for call-in radio. I don't know what it is about me, but it's always been that way for me, where I want the biggest uphill battle. To be honest with you, Columbus, Ohio About the only time I feel like I'm not the top of the food chain would be if I were to tie myself to a tree, cover myself in maple syrup. Maybe I could get a coyote to come up and give me a hard time for a couple of minutes. But it's why I've always loved Yellowstone in the winter, Death Valley in the summer, the Everglades, when the mosquitoes are just horrific. I love the wolves, the mountain lions. I love not being the top of the food chain.
Yeah.
And it's I don't know if it's a character flaw or a defect, whatever you want to call it, but that's my story about how you and I met, and why it is that I'm here now. Yeah, absolutely. But that's an area where you and I are different, though. I mean, I think we kind of think the same in terms of goals and some of the folly of goal setting and whatnot, but. But I think where we're different is I actually don't mind if things are easy. Yeah, I bet you. Know what I mean? I think Ashley would say, "Yeah, you're barking up the wrong tree." With Brian, it's always got to be not only does it have to be difficult. She says you just can't settle. Like when I built the RV with the solar panels and the wind turbine, and I was like, I'm going to get on Good Morning America and the early show with this. And she's like, yeah, sure you will. Okay, have fun. Don't run with scissors. And as she tells the story, she goes, I'll be damned, but 6 weeks later, he's on Good Morning America. Of course. So I just don't know any other way to do it. And that's to say, when people ask me, they go, well, when was the last time you failed? Well, I don't believe I've ever failed. Because I just don't give up, right? It's part of that, because I read things about like a common trait among successful people is just how they look at, like they don't see obstacles, they see through them or over them or around them, but they just kind of don't, like in their own minds, they don't acknowledge or they don't even use that word obstacle. It's just you just go forward. Period. You know what I mean? Well, we're over in the thread now, and I want to let you know that our good friend David Ray Bowman, who is like you, he's a real professional radio guy. And I was on his show, and he says, I was so happy to get out of morning radio. But then he says, great. So the only reason I got to meet you, hold on. He says, the only reason I got to meet you via my show is that you're insane. Yes, David. Yes, it was. And and I guess my publicist must have pitched him. Here's a crazy guy who sits in avalanches for fun, who wants to be on your show to talk about survival. And David was gracious enough, or his booking agent was gracious enough to put me on. And he says in the thread, totally worth it, though. He just got back from Yellowstone. I enjoyed all the pictures. So, David, I've been thinking about you all day. I've been thinking about the last 14 hours and 34 minutes because, like Matt, I'm always able to call David and go, all right, I'm in over my head. What is gain? What is EQ? Yeah. What are all these other things? And you guys have both been always so gracious to me. But I wanted to make mention of David and here in the thread, and thank you very much for that. So I guess maybe that's it, Matt. I look at it as I like the idea of a challenge, and maybe it prepared me, brother, to be honest. Maybe it prepared me for what I'm up against with the aftermath of the brain tumor and all the surgeries and everything else. I don't know how I'm going to win, but I just refuse to lose. I guess I don't know. Yeah, I mean that's what it takes, right? I think so. That attitude that you refuse to lose. That's what it takes. I think so, right? If nothing else, like you, perhaps like you, I just have a blast doing it, right? Like when I posted the other day, what could possibly go wrong? And my friend Wayne Noel said, there's just something about you. You don't dig it unless you don't know what you're getting yourself into. He goes, hey, I'm going to do this. Okay, great. Now, how do we do this? I don't have a clue. Don't know. So I don't know if it's the right way to be. I would, like you, and when you say, well, I think sometimes I don't mind it to be a little bit easier. David Ray says Dave Bowman says, too legit to quit. I think I'm just too insane to cave, right? I'm not going to give up, and so maybe that's it. But I didn't want to belabor the point. I think that I think back to those first days and the break that you gave me, and it must have been something, Matt, because be honest, right? I'm not the easiest person to deal with. I mean, I've called you and say, well, let's change the name of the show. I've called you and said, let's, right? And you're like, right? So I thank you for all the times that you've ignored me and said, yeah, Bri, I don't give a shit. I don't care what you think. This is the way we're doing it, and I thank you for that. But I've called you and go, I want a morning show. I want an afternoon show. I want an evening show. Oh, what's the latest? I want a morning and an evening show, right? So I really appreciate helping me when you can, and also saying no to me because you realize that it's best for me if you say no to me. So thank you very much for that as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, but you're not. I mean, I certainly don't find you difficult to deal with in any way. I mean, you're always, you're always nice. You're always professional. I would say you're actually very easy to deal with.
Oh, well, thank you. Please don't ruin my rap, though. I got everyone thinking I'm a prima donna.
I don't
right?
mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't mean to hurt your image.
Yeah, so. Right. Oh, that Brian, he's a prick. You don't want to mess with him, right? So, but I thank you. Like that one time, and I'll tell you, I realize now, Matt, that I was just going through PTSD. My friend Sherry was on earlier about the time I appeared to speak at Soldier Field on behalf of other people with brain shunts, and I said that I made Glenn Beck look like a heartless, cold stoic. I mean, I got up on stage and looked at these other people with brain shunts, looked at these other people that were affected by all the different surgeries that they've been subject to, and I just cried like a little baby.
Yeah.
And I think born out of that, I came back the next day and said, okay, Matt, I want to abandon everything we've done, and I want to change the name of the show. And thankfully, you were like, yeah, okay, great. Yeah, let me draw up some graphics on what that's going to be like. Let me draw up some graphics. And then you just never return my calls. So it was just like, no, we're going to stick with it. Because now you've gotten us on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Blurberry. You've gotten the show everywhere. And we're at this point because thankfully, you absolutely ignored me, right? And I'm very thankful. I'm very thankful for that.
Well, I recall quite vividly exactly what happened with that, because I remember you had me on your show, because at that point you were on at night, and you had me on your show because you wanted to kind of publicly announce the name change that you wanted to do. And you had me call in, and I couldn't. I'd make a terrible poker player,
right?
Because I can't hide how I feel, and I was trying so hard because I wanted to be supportive, and I understood why you wanted to change the name and everything, but I just couldn't. And I just was like, yeah, that's great, Brian. I love it.
Yeah, I love it. Right. And I remember hanging up thinking, yeah, Matt didn't sound like his normal cheery self. I wonder if he's coming down with the flu. I wonder if he's okay. I'll have to call back, right? I'll have to call back and see how he was. But that was a perfect example. And I look at PTSD, and I think, Matt, I always thought that was reserved for people coming home from wars, people that have been involved in horrific accidents, or, just subject to just horrific occurrences in life. And I don't think I was prepared to, here's what it is. I think any other ailment in your body, you got bad knees, you got a bad gut, you got bad lungs, you got a bad ticker, a bad shoulder. You can kind of, in your mind, go, the bad part of me is over there, right? You can kind of almost like take your hands like you're pushing it away.
Yeah.
But the biggest challenge for me has been, and the biggest challenge Yeah, David Ray Bowman says, I love it is radio speak for that's hideous.
He's
Dave,
not wrong.
yeah, he's not wrong. David must be going, are you kidding me, Brian? Yeah, David, you should know. But I think what I wasn't prepared for was that the part of me that's ailing is the seat of reason for me. And it's been really hard on my you and my and friends. It's been really hard on my wife. It's been really hard on my kids, and it's been really hard on people that are around me, because at times when the spinal fluid just drains out of me, I either have too much. That's hideous. I love that, David. Thank you. I either have too much or too little. I can't rely on my own thought process anymore. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I mean, clearly I'm in the middle of a 24-hour radio marathon, right? And I'm looking at it now going, 9 hours? What the hell were you thinking? So, but there are times where the thought process is what's compromised, right?
Yeah,
So it's like a bad heart's a bad heart. You can rationalize it. But there are times when the levels are off, the serotonin's off, all the other things that they think happen because of the aftermath of 3 traumatic brain injuries. It leaves me in a weird way, because I don't even know, right? Like my amnesia. I don't know if I told you this story, but I came back not too long ago, and Ashley said to me, she goes, when did you go to, I went to Wendy's, I think, for lunch. And I go, well, I didn't go to Wendy's. And she goes, oh, you didn't? And I said, no, no, I didn't go to Wendy's. And I go, why? And she said, well, there's a receipt. And I said, oh, I didn't go to Wendy's. And she takes out the receipt and shows me. And it said, I ordered a double cheeseburger with ketchup, mustard, pickle, and tomatoes. And I said, that's what I would have ordered. And she goes, I know. And it come to find out that earlier that day, apparently I announced that I was going for a job interview at Speedway or I don't know, like a Napa auto parts store, announced it to everyone and left. And sometime in that time frame, I'm sitting at a Wendy's having lunch, come back, and I have no recollection, right? I have no recollection of any of it. So I've had those, some of those bouts of a little more solidified amnesia, but then I'll have these occurrences where I just, sometimes it's funny, she'll go, did you just do that? And I'll go, maybe I did, maybe I didn't, right?
Right.
Nah, did you just say that? Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. But for the most part, that my mind just doesn't allow me to recall some of the different things. And if it weren't for the receipt, and if it weren't for the ketchup, mustard, pickle, and tomatoes, I'd still think she was trying to pull one over on me, but that's what I would have ordered.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I got in trouble. I told you the one time I got in trouble where I went to a gas station, and I was driving back, and I didn't know my zip code. So I put my credit card in. I was somewhere in Indiana, I guess. Put my credit card in, and I couldn't remember my zip code. So Ashley says to me a couple weeks later, she goes, well, can I have some cash? I go, I don't have it. She goes, what'd you spend all your cash on? I said, gas, I suspect. She goes, well, why would you spend it on gas? You have a credit card. So she called, and they later surmised that I stood there punching in random numbers. So they canceled my credit card because they thought it was stolen. I have no recollection of it, Matt. I have no recollection. But thankfully, I had a GPS. Thankfully, I had the ability to get home because I just followed what the GPS told me. I knew enough in life to, well, if you want a gas, you got to go in and pay for it. So apparently, I sauntered in, paid for gas. Knowing me, I probably got a double cheeseburger with ketchup, mustard, pickle, and tomatoes, right? And got back in my car and drove home. Totally unaware that had happened to me. So I think a portion of tonight is just people waiting to see if I can even stay awake for 24 hours, right? Seeing if before I go for this 81 to win, and there'll be a lot more involved in it, but just to see.
Yeah.
David says, Amigo, I got to get the boy to bed. I'll catch the vids later. David, thank you so very much. I don't know if you're home from your trip, but thank you for everything, and thank you for joining us here this evening at All Natural Being. So, yeah, Matt, that's it. I think a lot of it is, will I be able to make it? I haven't been up for 24 hours since the surgery.
Right.
Yeah, so we'll...
Well, you said you're feeling good, though, right?
I feel great. The thing about it is the world record. They program the rules, right? What you can follow, and I'm allowed 20 minutes of rest every 4 hours.
Okay.
So what I thought I would do is I'll go for 12 hours, which was 10 o'clock tonight. So I'm already crushing that. What I'll do is sometime over the next few hours, I'll take an hour break. I guess, this is great, Matt. And I know you say that I usually ask you for stuff on air so that you'll go, what did he say? That radio speak for that's hideous. So if I take a break here in a little bit, which I'm allowed to do according to the rules, so if I get 4 minutes I get 20 minutes every 4 hours. I get an hour break coming up. But a little bit of behind the scenes logistics. What should I run in that hour? Do you want to? Is there an old episode or something that you want to run just to keep the airtime from being off, or don't you care? I mean, you're the boss. What do you care? You tell me how you want to do it. But I get 20 minutes every 4 hours, so I get an hour coming up if I pulled it off till 10 o'clock. 10, 11, 12, 1, 2. So I actually get about an hour and 20 minutes, believe it or not, still within the rules. So you let me know how you want to play that.
So you're taking so when are you going to be off?
I thought I would take about an hour from 4 to 5 and then come back on from 5 to 10. And not that I particularly feel like I need to now, Matt, but what I want to do is kind of start grooming my body for this 81 hours. And I think every 12 hours, I should just contemplate. And, the young lady, I reached out to be a friend of hers on Facebook, and she, as another one, right? Kumbaya for everybody but me. Kumbaya for everybody but Brian. I reached out to her to try to get some pointers, and the book that she wrote, I suspect, about the event was only written in Spanish, and I don't read Spanish. So I'm trying to put this all together on my own to figure out exactly what it is that we should do. So I'm thinking maybe, you know what I mean? Maybe we should figure out a way to train me so that every 12 hours I take an hour off? Or do you think every 4 hours take 20 minutes off and get a quick cat nap? That's what I'm kind of working on now to see, what would be the best way to do all this. What do you think? Hold on, Matt. Let's see. Good evening. Welcome. Good morning. Welcome to All Natural Being. Is this Matt?
Yeah, we got disconnected.
Hey, sorry about that, bud. I was like, okay, there's a call coming in, Matt. Let's see who wants to say hello. So, all I was saying was that, every 4 hours you get 20 minutes. So in an attempt to plan what we're going to do for this 81 hours, I just thought I'd take an hour after 12 or so many. Not because I feel like I need it, but because I just like to groove this 81-hour attempt. And I wanted to see what you thought. Should I take 20 minutes every 4 hours and take a quick cat nap? Should I save it up and go 12 hours and take an hour? What do you think would be the best way to go about it?
Probably to take the hour. I mean, do you think? Because if you just do 20 minutes, I don't know. I mean, have you ever done that before? Done the 20-minute power nap?
No, my friend Paul was talking about it, and he swears by the 20-minute power nap. But that's a lot of power naps.
Yeah, that's true.
To get through the day.
Off doing the hour, yeah.
And then I'm wondering, am I going to fall asleep for an hour and not want to get up, right? So I don't know. There's a part of me that goes, look, you big sissy, there's only 9 hours left, right? Just gut it out and do it. But then I'll be subject to the 81 hours going, all right, just got it. I'm not going to gut out 81 hours. So
Right.
I'm trying to kind of like groove myself now. You know what I mean?
Right.
To figure
Right.
out the best way. What do you think would be a good way? And I don't
I
want to
would
take
go-
the last hour off, right? That's just lame. To go, okay,
Right,
great,
right.
I'll do it till 9 o'clock, and so it's only a 23-hour marathon. That doesn't sound very honorable. What do you think?
I would take the hour.
You would take
do
the hour. And then what do you want me to do in terms of the feed? Do you want to, if we pick an hour, you're probably getting ready for bed pretty soon. You're not going to stay up all night to listen to my shenanigans. Should I just let, for the hour, because the feed's been going now for 14 hours and 51 minutes, should you want me just to let the feed go, or do you want to throw in an old show? My goal would be to take the hour from maybe like 4 to 4:55, but I'll be back on air at 5 o'clock. So what do you think's the best way? How do you want to do it? You're the boss.
You know what? I could load up the first hour
Okay.
of the audio.
So why
And
don't
that
we?
way when
Yeah.
and then when you disconnect from the server, when you take your break, it'll play hour one.
Oh, that would be great. Do you mind?
No, I don't mind.
Oh, that'd be great. So what I'll do is I'm going to gut it out for the next 3 hours.
Okay.
Well, do this for me. Okay, let me ask you a question. Over when you do it, can we go on the half hour? So you and I are getting ready to hang. If I say I'm going to sleep from 3:30 to 4:30, can you program in on the half hour? So you can go 3:30 to 4:30. I'll be back up and ready to go. I'll do kind of like a half hour. I'll do some of these other riffs on my own. Then Henry Noel from Transitional Radio will be back on 7 to 8. And Sue, my good friend Sue, is coming on from 8 to 9. Can we do it on the half hour? Is that cool, or do you need it to be on the hour?
No, it doesn't matter because what'll happen is I'll just load up the episode, and then
cool.
whenever you disconnect from the server, it'll trigger the episode automatically at whatever. So it actually doesn't matter what time it is.
Okay, cool.
It'll fire off and it'll play. So yeah,
thank you.
No worries.
Well, here
That's
again
easy.
is me asking you a favor on air. Oh, this is a lot better than going, hey, can you change the name of the show? So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to take a break from 3:30 to 4:30, and then I'll come back on. I'll be on the air by 4:30 sharp, and then we will have lived up to what everyone said will be the record, and I will make it through till 10 o'clock, and then I'll pull a Rip Van Winkle that'll make his beard look like a 5 o'clock shadow.
I bet.
I'm gonna try to sleep. I'm gonna try to sleep for a while. All right, brother. We only have a few minutes left because I promised I wouldn't hold you past the hour. What's some other insight? I call you all the time, and you're always so gracious to me. Where I'll go, hey Matt, what can you tell me? What can I learn? What am I doing wrong? What's what can I focus on? So some thoughts as we get ready to go now. What would be something cool that you think, oh, Brad, did you ever think of doing this, or did you ever think of doing that? What are some of the things that you think I can add to it?
Well, my approach is and I would say any professor worth their salt at any broadcasting school will tell you that my approach is completely wrong. But the advice that I've always had, and I've told other people this too, is don't overthink it. It's cool to, model certain other people that you admire in the industry and this and that, but you also don't want to be trying to copy what someone else does just because they're successful, because you want it to be, if your show, if what you're doing isn't organically you to a point, then what is the point if you're just copying what somebody else is doing?
Sure.
So, like, the way I approach doing my show is I try to run on instinct as much as possible.
Okay.
And while I'm certainly influenced by others, I try not to copy anybody else or worry.
Right.
I try not to overthink it. And anyone, as you know, because you've listened to my show, and anyone else who's ever listened to my show, it probably kind of shows that I don't overthink it or plan or format very much. But to me, that it's exciting. The kind of winging it's exciting. But yeah, that would be my advice to people who are trying to do anything that's creative.
Sure.
If you're trying to be creative,
be creative.
Be creative, right? Don't try to be someone else just because you think you'll be successful. Because there can only be one of you, and there can only be one of whoever it is you're trying to copy.
Yeah.
So.
And the rest is just plagiarism.
Yep, exactly.
All right, Matt. Well, thank you so very much, not just for hanging out with me to the wee hours. I guess 1 o'clock in the morning is the wee hours of the morning. Thank you for hanging out. This whole episode has been episode 314, believe it or not, of All Natural Being. But more importantly, thank you for being, you mentioned role model earlier. I most certainly look at you that way. Thank you for all the things you've helped me with, and thank you for all the times where you're going, you're just batshit crazy. We're not doing it that way, Bri. So thank you, because let me say this. If it weren't for your vision and your guiding hand, we wouldn't be on Spotify. You have to admit that. Probably wouldn't have made iHeartRadio. Have to absolutely admit that. Maybe we could have gotten to iTunes. Who knows? But it's been your vision of how we were going to do this that's caused us the success that it's had. So thank you so very much again. I super appreciate it. And don't forget, True Fruit, thank you. I've been mentioning this throughout the day. You know, you get yeah, right? I know. It's freeze-dried real fruit in delicious dark chocolate. I've already eaten the strawberry one, so I'll pull this back on so you can see. But you just let me know. Go to truefruit.com. And I know that sounds like a ploy every time I say that, but go there. Tell me what your favorite flavor is, and I'll bang you and Jenny out a bag for playing with me earlier today, playing with me tonight, and then also, as you have all along, helping me through all of this. So I truly appreciate it. And I'll be taking a break at 3:30. If you don't mind loading that would be great. All right, Matt, thanks so much. Please tell Jenny I said goodnight. And again, thank you for absolutely everything.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you, Brian.
All right, brother. Take care.
Always a pleasure.
Thanks, man.
Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, we're going to go ahead. We get to our little thing here at the top of the hour, so you know what that means. We're going to be leading in with Lee. We'll do our quick little break. And then now we know what we're going to be doing. We'll be taking a break from 3:30 to 4:30. We're going to get that back on. Very special guest coming up in about 3 minutes. So let's do this, and we will be right back.
IPMNation.com.